Hey everyone, welcome to The Path of Me. I have the incredible artist Candice Alexander from Lake Charles, Louisiana, joining us today. And Candice has been a regular on my show. Candice, I sure appreciate you being here. Thank you for your time. I know you're at the festival, so I greatly appreciate you making time for me today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. We were just talking before we clicked record about this constant evolution of art, um, or bodies of work, I would say, that you've created. And I wanted to ask you, do you just get kind of inspired and move in a direction organically, or is it impacted by events going on externally in your life? I know you just had a historic building come down very close to your studio in Lake Charles, and that kind of was an impetus for this shift in what you've been doing with all the glass.
Yeah, it's kind of both. You know, I've always had to make ends meet, ever since I started as an artist. I mean, I never had money growing up. I didn't have fancy art supplies, even art classes, and I've always had to sort of make something from what I had.
Mhm.
And so even though the success has been good over the last few decades, couple decades, that still carries on with, like, what can you do from the rubble? What can you build at a Renaissance fair from the trash pile? And that sort of mentality or has never really left, as far as, making stuff, creating stuff. So I'm really good now at taking getting creative with found objects and the rubble, like from the tower or even from the hurricane. I mean, I took a tornado or a massive hurricane and had no windows in my studio, no electricity, and I caught my head and embraced my art after a couple weeks. And then I introduced these pieces, and we started to get so busy. I'm like, okay, this is what we need to do. I told my team, we need to clear that table. We need to clear the floor with the glass, sweep the glass to the side. I need that table clear. We're going to start production. We're going to plug in the generators, plug in the printers, and start producing. And now I'm realizing that some of the inspiration does come out of devastation, which is wild to think about.
Yeah. There's something about hope after something tragic, and it feels like that's something you really offer people through your art. You know, people, when they have loss, they need something to hold on to or something to give them hope or vision for the future.
Right.
And every time you can take something, what year was that hurricane? Well, you had
Uh,
three back-to-back hurricanes that year. I remember because we had talked
20
after
2021, 2021, I think.
21. I'm not sure, but I know that people were so um, impacted just physically, emotionally, personally from that experience. And
It was 4 years ago because the hurricane happened 4 years and a week before the tower went down. So yeah, it was 4 years ago.
okay, 4 years ago. But I think we underestimate the power of art. It evokes feelings in people. It connects them to you, the artist. And I think also you're so much more than an artist because in your community, you stand for something, you persevere, you get up, you keep going, you advocate for things you believe in.
Yeah.
And you impact so many people, even if they're not coming in and necessarily buying your artwork. Um, your social media presence, your message, who you are as a person really impacts a lot of people. And I think when we're living our life, we're just doing our thing and we don't really realize the impacts we're having just by being ourselves. So I just want to honor you and take a moment to say thank you for having the courage, you know, even in your own, through your own personal loss, your studio is just blown apart in that event. And your home, of course, was impacted like everyone else's, but you had this incredible resilience about you. And I think that really inspires people to keep going. So thank you for what
You're
you offer
welcome.
the world. You're not, it's just not only your art, but it's kind of your soul and essence that you bring to life. And you're an example to people. So thank you so much for being you, Candice. You're
No, you're welcome.
creating such a huge impact, just by getting up every day and doing something you love and inspiring others to do the same.
No, I mean, I've always wanted to work for myself. I never wanted to, work for anybody else or corporate or anything like that. Nothing against that, but I've always honored that. So,
Not everybody
and
has a
it hasn't been easy either.
I was going to
It's
say, not
been,
everybody has the courage to do that because people will choose things for safety, security, but sometimes we have something deep inside that needs to be expressed and you don't have a choice. You have to follow that path. And it seems like that might be how it is for you.
yeah, and it's I've realized it's the hustle too. Of like, even though I'm in a place now where it's like I don't have to hustle. That's in me. The creating something from the rubble is just that's just who I am.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I mean, I feel like I could win the lottery and be the richest person on earth, and I'd still probably make stuff from the trash, from the rubble. I'd tell a
Yeah.
story about it.
Yeah.
So,
Can you tell me a little bit? Because I know a lot of the listeners aren't really aware of that building that went down. Can you tell me a little bit about the history of that and how that impacted you, like watching them take that down and how you felt about it and how you collected all that glass and created this new body of work that you're working on?
okay, is this podcast just audio or it's video too?
It's video too, so you could show some of
Okay,
your pieces if you want.
I'll go get. So the CM Tower was built in 1981. Um, it was, I think, a 29-story building. This is a drawing I did probably after the hurricane. Um, and then from so during the hurricane, my studio is 4 blocks away from that tower, downtown. And while I was picking up my life in the street, I was also walking on just tons of glass from that building. My paintings had flown a few blocks away, and they were near that building. The glass was blown by my studio. And so I picked up some glass, then, but at the time, who's worried about picking up broken glass when you have
Right.
your paintings landing and your life all
Yeah.
over and just
Yeah.
tons of chaos. So I did pick up some glass, and then I don't know, I'd say a year after the hurricane, I did the drawing of that CM Tower. Um, and then I'd put a little piece of shard of glass on the bottom of the frame of the drawing, and no one knew at the time. It went through like, oh, we're going to rebuild it. Oh, it might demo it. Oh, we're going to rebuild it. We're going to rebuild it. And they started fixing the windows, and then I don't know what happened. I do know that they bought it for 7 million. They got 100 million for insurance, and they demoed it for 7 million. So the building
Interesting.
was,
Interesting
yeah,
fun fact.
yeah.
Hmm.
And, there's just thousands of stories. And of course, I'm hearing a bunch of them of people's lives that involved that were, that building encased. So, um, the way I got the glass was I had some from the hurricane, and I started etching with my laser after we got set up and stuff. We finally got windows. I brought the laser to my house. And I've always played with that glass, but I've never really played with it in jewelry. And jewelry is, since I was 11, my first business, and I actually found a little cork board with my first necklaces when I was 11 the other day in the studio.
Wow.
I still have them.
Oh my
So
God.
my first business was, the little Indian beads and stuff. And I would
Mhm.
sit at craft shows with my grandmother, and she would do her yarn work. And, I'd sell my little necklaces for 75 cents a dollar. And I'd draw each design that I'd sell so I could make them again. I'd go and spend the money and buy beads. And, so that business sense was always with me, even as a kid. And so I've always played with jewelry. 2014, I went to McNeese Seed Center to, it was right a year or so after 3D printers came out. And I was looking to do a quicker way of the lost wax casting process. And so I thought, why am I having to wait for this old lady who's carving all of my designs for jewelry out of wax and using snail mail, and it was just taking forever. So I went to the Seed Center, and there was a 3D printer, and I'm like, well, surely if I can get a 3D print, I can send that to the lost wax casting. And that was 10 years ago. And fast forward, the person who is in charge of that is now my partner, which is ironic because it's jewelry 10 years later.
Really?
Yeah, so that's cool. But I was looking to do jewelry even back then, and that was in 2014. So fast forward 10 years, now there's, all these things like AI and CAD drawings and 3D printers, and then you could take it back 6,000 years for lost wax casting. And it goes back to when I was 11 of what I really want to do. So I never thought, when the building came down, I never thought that, before the building came down, I was curious about getting glass. I had ChatGPT write me a hold harmless liability agreement. I brought it over to the office 2 blocks away from my studio where the building was. And that was about probably 3 or 4 months ago, I brought this agreement. Nothing happened. I would text the little guy, the little safety manager. I'm like, hey, can I get some glass? Nothing. And then I finally was like, you know what? Just forget it. You're not going to get any glass. And then 2 weeks before they imploded it, this little old lady came in the studio with a shoebox full of glass. Not much. And she goes, I want you to do me a Louisiana outline of the state
Like the
with the glass.
fleur-de-lis?
No, it was just the state of Louisiana with the glass.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
And I have some here. And I asked her, I was like, where did you get that glass? And she goes, well, my husband's friends with the marshal, and they gave the marshal some. So she wanted me to do a piece like this out of the glass. And I told her, I'm like, look, I won't charge you if I can do me one with the rest of your, glass.
Yeah.
So she let me do that. And then I went on, and this was 2 weeks before they imploded it. So I went on Facebook Live, and people were going crazy. They were like, oh, can you make me one? Can you make me one? And I didn't have any glass.
Right.
And so as soon as she leaves, I texted the little safety manager. I said, my friend just came in here. She got some glass from the marshal. I'd be so grateful if I could get some. So they brought me 2 buckets right after that. So now there's all these rumors now that once I had the glass and stuff, that I was sneaking in getting the glass. And there's rumors that I had, there's rumors that I had fake glass and all this stuff because nobody could get glass.
Right.
And I even called the corporate office in Dallas, and who am I, when 30 people a day call wanting the glass.
Right.
So I got the glass, and this was a couple weeks before, maybe like 10 days before the tower went down. And I went through all my little jewelry findings, and I'm like, oh, this ring would be this setting would make a cool ring, or this pendant would make a cool thing. And I started putting these things together, put them on the website, and accidentally spent $300 a day on ads. and I was like, uh-oh.
Oh my God.
And I just let it roll. So
wow.
The tower, so
what was it? Was it an accident or divine intervention?
No, it wasn't.
No, it was.
Sure. $300 is a lot to spend on a day on ads on Facebook. Yeah. Not knowing what what people really are wanting. And I didn't know.
Right.
And so the tower comes down, and I'm selling what I don't even remember what I sold for. Maybe a pendant. I sold a ton of these bronze pendants, and I didn't even have any. I had one. So here I go, get on the phone with the lost wax caster. I'm like, dude, I need these casts. And he's like, well, I don't have your molds. They sold the company, and I never got the molds from their last guy. And
oh my
thank God. well, thank God I had one bronze piece. So and they're still in production. Even right now, there are people waiting on orders. And so I got the glass. I started making what I had in my findings. The tower comes down, and I immediately, when I knew that people wanted this and how much I didn't even really know. It was kind of like the hurricane series. I didn't really know that people would be so attached to it. So I embraced that because it gave them emotion. And that's what I like that. I like
Right.
to make
There's
people
a
feel stuff with my
connection.
art.
It means something to them.
So I started ordering these findings, and it felt forever. It took like forever for them to come in. And so I ordered some earrings, and I put together the earrings while I sold out. And now in the process, the ad is still going. And so, and since I got the glass, I made the demo owner his logo out of glass. I made friends with the little guy who brought me the glass.
Oh,
The demo owner came in after I made him that piece, and he's like, I really love that painting. And I'm like, it's yours. And it was a big painting. And then he brought his wife in, and then from there he brought me some rebar, and I had fake rebar. That was the word on the haters groups. He brought me safety deposit box doors. I have like 30 of those.
that's cool.
Yeah. And here comes the chatter of my fake glass, and there's no way that rebar is real because she had it before the tower went down, and I bet she's selling the dust. And I started to think, the dust, huh? So I started making beads from the dust.
Wow. Are you serious?
Gospel.
Oh my God.
And then so so this is one. It's using precious, semi-precious stones. This is agate, the smaller beads. And then the bigger beads, all this clear debris in there is the glass shards.
Really?
And so
Wow.
during all this, like, I've always loved jewelry, and I've always collected rocks. So I immediately bought a lapidary machine where you can, do facets and cuts and stuff.
Right. Right.
And then I bought, rock shifting kits where I can sort of grade the glass and keep the small ones on the bottom and the
Right. Right.
different
Right.
sizes. And that made it a lot easier for,
So you're not just
earrings.
sorting through by hand, looking for
Right,
the right size. Yeah.
right, right. And so, I'm trying to get ready for the Revel, and then the building comes down. So I'm like double crazy busy. I'm getting ready for this huge show. We have a 30 by 46-foot booth,
Ooh,
and I'm dealing with a few hundred, probably 400 orders from this glass. And I
I
have,
saw that on your Facebook. You were doing Facebook Lives and stuff. And I'm like,
yeah,
how is she? And you're remodeling your home.
that's done. That's finally
Okay.
done.
I was like, how does she
Yeah.
sleep? Like, how is she doing
Well,
this?
I say it's done, but we haven't even started the bathroom. But
Right.
yeah, so I was getting ready for the Revel. The tower comes down, and then I have hundreds of orders with nothing in stock. No bracelet making stuff, no
Oh my.
no ring settings, no earrings, nothing to fill orders with, no bronze pendants because I had to get them cast. So, and we're normally pretty quick. When we get an order, we're pretty quick to get it out because I don't outsource anything. But now
Mhm.
that has evolved into sort of a jewelry business overnight, which is what my
It
passion was when I
it's
first started as
it
a kid.
seemed to happen so fast.
It was very fast,
And I was
almost.
like, wow, how is she? Because I know this show, you just mentioned the size of your booth is huge. So you're got to have inventory for that, right?
Right. And we had to pack it in an
Yeah, I
18
was gonna
wheeler.
say you got to pack, set up, and then, but it was literally days before that you were just cranking orders out. I was
Yeah,
just like, how is she managing all this? You also
yeah,
have a good team. You have a solid team that
yeah.
probably works with you,
um
helps you, but still, it's a
yeah.
lot.
We had a binder. We started with a little binder of orders, and we couldn't fill them because I didn't have anything. I didn't have any findings. I didn't have, when I tell people, it's like, we weren't ready for this, but we are now,
Right,
how are
right.
you? Um, and I did a video or something the other day on Facebook, and there was a client in the store, and I'm using this lapidary wheel, and I've got me a little wet saw, uh, and it came out, and it was like, yeah, I've been wanting to do this since like before I was born, you know. Um, and then from there, it's like I started to just play around with findings and using the glass as sort of like almost like something precious,
So
and
cool.
making it beautiful. And then, the back of some of the glass has some of it's black and some of it's mirror.
Yeah.
So it's just really beautiful to work with. And so that evolved into me getting in a piece of raw sapphire and actually cutting a facet that is very imperfect, but it's still beautiful,
Hmm.
in a ring. Um, and
There's
I didn't
something
really have
about
much
that though. I want to stop you there because it's kind of a metaphor for us, right? It's like we're all there's little imperfections in us, each of us, but we're all beautiful. There's just like a metaphor there, I think, and what that represents, you know?
Well, it's like you look at these pieces and it's like, did this come from the 19th floor? But it's like, where in all of those massive windows did this little piece come from? I don't know. So I'm very passionate about making things that have meaning. You know, the Salye oak, the cross pistols in Lake Charles. Things that people relate to.
So were you able to get more to fill your
Glass.
order?
You were asking me, did I get more glass?
I mean, you had all these orders
Oh,
that you needed to fill. You had received a couple buckets. Obviously, you were able to find more, so you were able to meet the demand.
well, when you're doing small little pieces like this, the glass really goes a long way.
Yeah.
But I did end up, getting more glass. But right now, and I got the glass before it came down, and then I got one bucket, like one solid bucket after it came down. And I talked to someone yesterday, and he's like, Candice, there's no glass. He goes, it's buried. It is buried under concrete and steel. And he's like, there's none. So it's there. It's just buried in a mound of probably a 20, 30 foot mound of debris.
Debris. Yeah.
Yeah. So in a way, I hope that there is no more. But then in a way I do,
Yeah. Well, we'll
So
find out. We'll find out, right, as they start clearing debris and sifting through all that, you know.
right,
I kind of feel like what's for you is for you. So you're going
right.
to it's going to find you, or you'll find another material but maybe that was the impetus to get you to move in this direction, right? It was like
No,
this,
it was. It
and it was so such a big part of your heart. It was just ready to be birthed, this whole jewelry direction that you're going in.
Yeah, no, it absolutely was like that catalyst. And I'll show you, if I can turn this around. I'll show you some of these are just some of the pieces. So this is the sapphire that I cut here.
Beautiful.
Um, and so these are just some of the rings and the glass that we've done. These have been really popular, the wine stoppers.
Yeah. Wow. Those are big, big pieces.
And it's got granite and glass, and they're engraved, Um, and then, I brought my little equipment here.
I can't imagine packing for that show.
No, you can't. You really can't. I mean, look at this.
How many
Look at
semis
this.
is that worth of
But
inventory?
it all packs up in the 18-wheeler. So I'll show you in there.
Wow. Incredible.
So there's the
Wow. You have so much inventory.
I know. And then there's some at the studio, a lot at the studio. But this is you walk into the 1800.
Wow.
So yeah,
That's a good use of extra space, right?
yeah. But it looks like it just kind of set up really fast, and it didn't. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Tell me about this
So
body of work behind you. What inspired this kind of divinity, divine artwork?
so we did a podcast last year, probably this day last
It
year.
was literally right after that you just were so prolific with this body of art behind you.
Yeah. So I came home, I went through Christmas. I met my partner, and I decided that I wanted to freshen up my house, paint the fireplace white, paint the living room, and just touch it up, ignore the rot
You know
and the
what
criminal.
happens? You're like, I'm just going to paint this wall, and then it's a whole house
Yep.
renovation.
I
I've
bought my
done that.
house. When I bought my house 14 years ago, I'm like, I want a house with a fireplace, a big yard, and I want nothing to have to do to it. I don't want to do a single remodel. I'm like, no remodel. So I called a guy that I knew was an AC guy that I've been knowing for a few years. I'm like, I need some honest painters. And they came the next day, red flag. And I was walking around, and I was like, I just want, painted the fireplace white. And I was like, I just want it touched up. Just want the living room freshened up. Little did I know there'd be every floor joist that I was standing on, every subfloor would be rotten. Um, and at the time I was
Wow.
doing that, I luckily was getting a brand new Vermont slate roof because I had a hail claim 6 months prior to that, and I had like the asbestos concrete shingles, and so they had to replace my whole roof because you can't buy asbestos anymore. And so I had this
Wait,
guy
how
come
old
over,
is your place? When was it built?
1928.
Okay.
It's probably the most solid house in town. It's 6 inch thick brick, 3 feet in the ground, underground. It's a solid. It was built by a mason whose wife was afraid of hurricanes.
Wow. That's the best
So
construction that you can ask
yeah.
for in your location.
So where did these pieces start? So we did a podcast a year ago at this show. I
Hmm.
come home, I go through Christmas, I hired this contractor. I was like, I just need my living room freshened up. But if I had my way, this wall would come down. Now, I didn't know that that was a load bearing wall in the kitchen. And next thing I know, the wall comes down. 2, 3 walls came down. The tiles come up, and all of a sudden I'm in this remodel. Well, I had gone to, right before this, I had gone to a St. Michael's Basilica church in Pensacola, Florida, and I was mesmerized by the stained glass windows. And I thought to myself, I really want to do a religious piece, vibrant like these windows. And then an hour later, a priest calls me out of the blue from Church Point, and he's like, I want to commission you to do a good shepherd. I want it vibrant colors. I want Jesus holding a lamb.
What? Literally an hour later?
An hour later on a Sunday at 1 o'clock, out of the blue, a priest calls
Wow.
me. He goes, I want a good shepherd holding a lamb with lambs in the background with a vibrant sunset. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I started it immediately, kind of rough drafting it and stuff. And then in January 5th, I hired the contractor. And then the Good Shepherd sat in my garage. The original, it was a little bit bigger than this. It was probably this size here. So
Hmm.
the Good Shepherd sat in my garage. It was getting, full of dust. I forgot about it because I was like, oh my God, I'm going through this remodel now, and there's dust everywhere. And then it was cold during the time. So I'd sit in front of my brand new white fireplace that was now dusty. And I just found myself painting these portraits of Jesus and Mary. And I didn't even really know where they came from. But I think back, and it's like, you know, and so I did about 6 of them, and I was like, I kept asking myself, like, where did this come from? I have hate groups that are like, oh, she just changes her style, and who does that, and whatever. So I was asking myself, like, where did these things come from? And then when it was time to, and I didn't know the contractor was a criminal at the time, and
Right.
all I wanted to
That
do,
whole that whole debacle. which we
Yeah,
can get into after we talk about this, but wow.
yeah. And I told them, I'm like, don't screw me. This is what happened when the shelter killed my cat, and this is what happened when my employee did this and committed fraud. And this is, I was like, just treat me right. What did he do? He screwed dozens of other people.
Yeah.
So I did these portraits, and I realize now that like all I wanted to do was touch it up, freshen it up, ignore the rot I didn't know about. And I was sitting there painting the Jesus portraits, wondering where this came from. And then it was time for the priest contacted me. He was like, "Hey, when can I pick up the Good Shepherd?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's been sitting in my garage. I had forgot about it." And so when the priest came and pick up the Good Shepherd, I'm like, "That's where this came from. It came from that one piece, and that's why that one piece there is, besides this one, is the only one in color, and all of these are sort of, black and white Da
Right,
Vinci style."
right, right.
And so I found myself sitting in the dust, sitting in the rubble, drawing these portraits of Jesus and Mary, and not knowing the battle and the remodel chaos and the money and the loss and all the victims I'd find out and the law I would change, and how the system is so flawed in the justice system and the flaws in the public records, not knowing that God chose me to do this work
I
because he
mean, you
knew.
couldn't even get access to public records, which was suspicious in the first place. You were trying to get records, I remember, but
Well, when I
yeah,
changed the House, but when I wrote the House Bill 816, it was written on Thursday, and Good Friday, everything was closed. Easter weekend happened. The deadline for legislature was April 1st. Do you know that state rep made it happen and proposed that bill, House Bill 816, to go into statute 14202, contractor fraud, to protect the elderly against these criminals if they're 65 years and older? He pushed that bill, and it passed through the committee with flying colors. I went to the
wow,
state capitol.
wow.
Um, and then, I was probably 2 months into contacting the victims and writing this House bill. Then I come up to Shreveport and I take a private investigator class. And while I'm up here, House Bill 816 has passed. They have decided now to change the law that allows any person to obtain public records in Louisiana. And I'm like, did they do that because of me? You know?
Of course they did. You're so divinely guided, and I think sometimes you don't at the time you don't realize it, but maybe in retrospect you're like, wow, that really makes sense, that there's, and sometimes it has to be such a jarring experience or such an intense personal experience, but there's this overlay because you're meant for something bigger along those lines.
I talked to so many elderly people that a lot of them didn't make reports because they were embarrassed. Some did, and they didn't speak out. I mean, I get it. I was embarrassed that I got scammed. I'm like, I'm pretty smart. I'm catch on to things. How did I get scammed? And then I realized I wasn't the only one on that scam island. It was another lady I found, and I was going to go knock on every house door on 17th Street until I found who this was. And then it wasn't just us. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. There's probably dozens, and there was
And I think it's hard
all
because
over.
elderly people are so vulnerable anyway, and I
Yep.
think and they're tired and they don't want to take anything on and they don't want attention drawn and there's some
Well, they were
shame.
scared. They're scared.
Yes, of course.
I talked to so many older women mostly. One of them's husband had Alzheimer's, and she was like, "Oh, I'm just scared he's going to come after me." And I'm like, "If anybody he's going to come after, it's not going to be you." Okay, because I put him all over out there, And then once I put him out there on my following, people really started to listen, and there were people all over contacting me, even people from a church he had just started going to, contacting me, telling me that they got scammed too. And then
Wow.
the DA finally called me, and they're like, "Miss Alexander, we believe that you have more evidence than us." And I'm like, "Do you hear yourself? I'm an artist, you know?" But
Wow.
He got
That's incredible. Congratulations, though, because you're gonna, I mean, the impact of that law is going to help so many people moving
if
forward.
if they prosecute. I mean, I've learned a lot about the system. I've learned a lot about the state reps. I've learned a lot about the contractor board. I've learned a lot about the shadiness, the public records.
Sometimes the truth is
Yeah.
heartbreaking because you want to see the good, in people,
Yep.
but
It was
also
the best $20,000 I ever lost. Put it that way,
I was
because I
gonna
helped.
say, but I really believe energetically that that what is yours is coming. It may not come from that. It may not come directly from that contractor that ripped you off. But when you do good work and when you are following your heart and you're in your alignment for the greater good in what you're doing, what's for you is for you, and it's going to come back, and it's going to come back in abundance. I really believe that.
Yeah.
And sometimes people get really hyper focused on being wronged, and they let that tear them up inside. But I truly believe when we're in our integrity and alignment and we're doing what we're guided to do,
I feel
what's
like
for
I got,
us,
I feel like, I do feel like I was hyper focused, not about how I was wronged, but the vast number of people that
Yeah.
were elderly that were wrong.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of a fuel that lit a fire for you, right? To know that something has to be done, not just for you personally, but for the greater good, right?
I put my business aside. I put a lot aside and just dedicated this time, my time, to digging and really finding out through public records that there's this is a big deal, and it was, and it was bigger than I even thought it was.
How many victims do you think, based on your research, were you able to find?
I personally spoke to 38. There are, I think, 14 cases in Calcasieu Parish that are open since the hurricane, that have been open since the hurricane. So open cases means he bonds out, he keeps doing it, right? I found out in Sabine County, Texas, there were a few, not many had police reports. I found out through Orange County, Texas, Jasper County, Texas. Anywhere he lived, I called for public records, and I got a lot. It's a few dozen.
Wow.
And those are the ones. Those are the reports. Those are the initial
Right.
reports
There are
that
probably
public
a lot of
records.
people who didn't
A lot,
come
a lot,
forward that for whatever reason, right, were feeling what we
a
talked
lot.
about. And
Yeah.
so that it's probably exponentially greater.
In Louisiana, there's Cameron Parish, there's Calcasieu. Um, in Texas, there was Jasper County, Orange County, Jefferson County.
Pretty
And
wide net
yeah,
there.
I found
Wow.
out he was on probation while he was scamming people, and it's like, and getting arrested on probation, and it's like,
That's incredible.
what's
It's like
wrong with the
such
system,
a
man?
failure of the system in so many
Yeah,
ways, right? It's really hard to believe.
it's bad. It's bad. So
Yeah.
I learned that, and
I mean, I commend you for getting that. The fact that you got that law passed is incredible. That bill and that law passed. It's really incredible.
well, that law doesn't help people like me under 65, though.
I mean, it doesn't, but it's an opening, right? It's a beginning.
But yeah,
I wanted to
so
ask you a little bit about, how you manage to keep facing forward and expanding your directions and your art when there's so many people I find who are triggered by success or their perception of someone who's successful. And there's always those people who have something to say, that's critical or negative. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, to being out front, putting their heart out there, doing good work, and just having people come at them all the time. How do you navigate that? And what do you do? How do you just stay so focused in your alignment and on your art when there's all this garbage that's, not true by all of these people who are, it's clearly from coming from their egos and their wounds and their jealousy or whatever. How do you stay aligned and in your lane?
You know, I give a lot of credit to like my clients. My clients need me. And
Mhm,
then on the other hand, there are with success comes the haters,
mhm.
and I did a commercial, and I'm about to do another commercial on TV when I get back. I did a commercial a couple years ago, and what drove that was the noise. And I told myself, I'm like, if they don't know who you are, show them. And that's kind of what's just kind of stuck. And so, like the dust, it's like, well, I bet she's selling dime bags of the dust. And I just want to thank whoever gave me that idea because I
Yeah,
didn't even
right.
think of that myself. So I
Yeah.
said, I just listening. I mean, I listen to what people want, and that's why I look around and I've got probably 1,000 different designs in this booth,
There's
and
something for
it's
everyone in that booth,
right,
right?
right, right. And just in 2008, I kind of stopped doing the fleur de lis. I mean, I didn't stop making them, but I've stopped designing them because I've sort of embraced the sort of the bayou landscape, Louisiana roots theme, and I've always just told myself, you're not going to do that. All Louisiana artists do that, and I started doing those and landscapes, and that sort of got me in the field, and now it's like it's the jewelry, 3D printing, and I love using AI as a tool, um, in ideas and initial ideas and concepts. Like I think it's a great tool. I did a podcast. I think I've sent it to you. Uh,
That was a good
and it was
podcast. I watched it.
it was on using AI as a tool,
Yeah.
and you know,
So
so
basically, you just stay in your lane and you do you.
I guess, I mean, when people pay my taxes, I might listen. It's kind of my theory, you know.
Well,
So
as always, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. I think every year you're just growing in such quantum directions.
yeah, I got here and
It's
I'm like,
not
wait a
like
minute, I
linear.
didn't.
I feel like you're always kind of just expanding in so many directions. You're not just going and focused on one thing. And one thing I want to say, Candice, is I love how much diversity you have in the art that you do. You're not just one style, you know? You're like
Right.
you're such a multifaceted artist. And I love that about your work. Like you just have such a depth and incredible range.
Thank you. I mean, I have fun. I was looking into lapidary classes in Lyon, France. It's like,
Why not? Go for it.
yeah. So I don't know.
Adventure.
Yeah. So it's all full circle with the jewelry and the rocks and using the technology we have, and then going all the way back to the lost wax casting. I mean, it's so exciting. And I've mentioned that in my last podcast too with Orange Porker podcast I did. So it's exciting, and it's also overwhelming because I want things to happen like now. Like I don't like to wait. Like I want to
Right.
get it done, and
Oh,
and then I really don't. I mean, as far as like the production goes, I can get into it, but then I'll get bored with it
right.
because I'm good at creating things and
Yeah.
designing things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
I love that you
it,
were able to design your place, to see that birth too, your home.
yeah. Yeah,
I
that
watched that
was,
renovation with you. You know, you did a lot of lives and stuff, and it was really cool to see that starting to come together
you
for
know,
you.
my bathroom, I still have a bathroom that's, it's plumbed. That's about it. Got, you know,
I was laughing because I remember doing the same thing with my place. This is years ago. I was like, I'm just gonna paint this entry door wall.
hmm
It was like a full house renovation from
yeah,
that $20 bottle can of paint, you know? It's like, oh man,
yeah,
you were
yeah.
going.
$5 worth of paint for the $2.50 worth of paint for the fireplace, and I'm
Exactly.
at,
And then it's
you
like
know,
thousands later, you know? Oh
$150,000
my
later
God. But it looks amazing. It looks
during
amazing.
the most highest inflation times ever. You know, let's just remodel a house. That was not the plan.
It doesn't have to make sense.
No.
Apparently it was because it happened, right?
And
I wanna ask you to stay on a couple minutes after we get off. So don't
okay.
click real quick, but I just want to thank you so much for your time. I know you're so busy. I know your time is valuable, and we were joking because you said you can catch a moving target, and I finally did. I finally got you to sit down with me. So thank you so
Oh,
much.
you're welcome. A client told me that the other day. She's like, "Look, she's standing still. You better talk to her now." She's like, "Can't catch a moving target." I'm like, "I like that."
There's some truth to that. But anyway, to my audience, thank you all for being here. Thank you for your support. I hope you go out, love yourselves, be kind to yourselves, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye.